tonight's event is all about crowdfunding. So we're going to talk about equity crowdfunding and then non-equity crowdfunding as well. So this would be like Kickstarter and those. We'll talk a little bit about grants as well and other non-dilutive funding sources. So really all about alternative ways of raising capital for your startup or business or whatever it is that you're building. We wanted to create a space and do an event for people who are looking for, alternative ways of raising capital rather than, having to approach angel investors or venture capitalists to get funding for whatever it is that they're building. And crowdfunding is a great way to do that. It's just getting started. I think there's so much room to grow with crowdfunding and equity crowdfunding, and it's changing the game a lot for entrepreneurs to be able to get access to capital. And real quick, I want to do a screen share and show everybody. If they haven't been into Entre before, we're going to be rolling out a ton of updates. But this is what it looks like when you log in on web. So we have our feed here. We do a weekly giveaway. So this week we're giving away a hoodie. And if you leave a comment here, you can get selected for a hoodie. But people here are asking questions. They're sharing what they're working on. These are all entrepreneurs, investors, freelancers, anyone doing cool stuff. It's just a great way to get into a like-minded community. So you can see a feed here. The For Yous are popular content. You can see a feed of just your connections, and then also just the newest content on the platform as well. If you click this little search icon, this is where you can filter content, people, events, jobs, and deals very, very easily, depending on what you're interested in. So if you just wanted to see real estate content, you can filter that in one click. If you just want to see content based on a certain city, you can do that as well in one click. If you want to search and find certain people, you can do that very easily as well. So if you're looking for investors or developers, you can click and filter these people in one click with our filters here. You can do the same thing for industry. So if you just want to connect with people, in, again, the real estate industry or another industry, we have a ton here. You can do that very, very easily. We post all of our events on here, but other people can post their events too. So we have a lunch and learn here. We have our investor office hours coming up. This is actually tomorrow night. So if anyone wants to get into an intimate room with an investor, we have Graham, who is a venture partner at Cultivation Capital. This is tomorrow night. This is actually only for pro members. So you will have to sign up for Entre Pro to get access to that. But there's a lot of other events that people are posting about, all sorts of different competitions. We're doing our pitch competition next week. So if you want to apply for that, tonight at midnight, the application ends. I'll drop the link, or someone from our team will drop the link for you to join that. Let me let some more people in here. So if you want to pitch to investors, you can do that very, very easily here through our pitch competitions. We're going to be doing one pretty much every month. We're going to try to continue to do as many as we can with our partners and everything. And then we're doing a no-code virtual summit as well in January. So this is basically for anyone who wants to learn how to build kind of like their first version of an app or web app or mobile app or software. There's a lot of really cool no-code platforms now and software that you can do. So we're going to have some really cool companies demo, and you can learn how to build your own apps yourself rather than paying developers to do it. At least for the first version, it's a really cool thing. You can also post and find jobs and gigs. So if you're looking for co-founder, if you're looking for developers or anything like that, you can post those here, and you can also apply for them very, very easily. You can also search and find deals. We have over 60 partners that offer a discount or a deal for our members on a ton of different software and services. And if you're looking for specific things, this is like the section to do that as well. This is only open to pro members as well. And if anyone wants more information on that, just let me know. So that's the basis. Obviously, we are always looking to help and connect entrepreneurs. That's why, we're doing what we're doing. We're also live on WeFunder right now, which is one of the reasons why we wanted to do this event, to let people know how beneficial it's been for us and how other people in our network can benefit from doing this. We'll talk about WeFunder and a lot of the other platforms and the pros and cons of doing it. If anyone's interested in getting involved with this, just feel free to reach out or let me know, and we'll drop the link to this also in the chat there. But with that being said, it looks like most of the people, I'm still letting some people in here. It looks like most of the people are in, and we can start introducing our panelists. We have 5 amazing founders and experts on crowdfunding with us tonight. We're going to dive into not only the equity crowdfunding, but also the other ways of raising capital through grants, and then other platforms like Kickstarter too. And I'd love to kick things off and go ladies first with Elizabeth from iFund Women, and have her share what her background, but also what iFund Women is all about, and a little bit of an intro for her. So Elizabeth, how's it going?
Thank you.
Thanks so much for being a part of this.
Absolutely. It was great because I like being the only woman on the panel. So hi, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Icorn. I am actually a startup coach at iFund Women. We are the go-to funding marketplace for women-owned businesses and those who want to fund them. And thank you, Lauren. Just wanted to let you know, we do this through rewards-based crowdfunding. We have grants on our platform. We also have coaching. We understand here at iFund Women the importance of really making sure that women get connected to the actual funders and how to do so. And so 30 seconds left on my background is that I actually had a business for the last 8.5 years. And I actually did rewards-based crowdfunding to fund my business to get started. So I have been in the crowdfunding space for a long time.
Yeah, love it. And I absolutely love what you were doing with iFund Women. We actually, one of our investors and advisors, Nisa, she's also an investor with you, which is how I kind of found out about iFund Women. And I absolutely love it. I think you've built a fantastic platform. And I think also having you as like coaches is super smart. And I love it. So excited to have you here and diving into some of this stuff. We can go ahead. Yeah, for sure. And we can go ahead and move on to Josh. Josh, how's it going? I'd love to have you share more about yourself and Vamper as well.
Cool. Well, I am, as you can probably tell by my voice, not from your wonderful land, but do reside here. And Vamper is the company that I very proudly lead. We are a social professional network for creatives, with a more heavy bent towards music in particular, but sort of expanding beyond that at the moment. As far as what we do in terms of the landscape and the space we operate in, we're most certainly the biggest company doing this thing. We're actually in our second equity crowdfunding campaign for 2020, technically, although we did launch the last one in 2019, but we are in the second sprint now, which is an interesting thing and a different kind of challenge than the first one, which we can get into later. But yeah, I mean, crowdfunding and Vamper have kind of been, they've gone hand in hand for several years now. We have raised capital from angels, VCs, friends and family, literally every possible scheme we've had grants, and loans and all sorts of things. But equity crowdfunding just started to make a lot of sense when we realized our number one asset was our user base, and they want to own the community that they live on or that they spend a lot of time on. So it sort of seemed logical at a certain point, and now it's a happy marriage.
Yeah, 100%. And I love that. We'll definitely get into the like the pros and cons, and also like what it's like raising money from angels and VCs too, because we've done that. And like I think it's very important for people to understand like why you would take money from VCs and angels and versus the other way around.
There's always a strategy You're choosing why you're getting. It's not just how much capital can I get; it's where am I getting it from and what's
Bingo.
exactly. We can get into that later.
100%. Yeah, and I'd love to pass it over to Phil. He's done a lot of stuff. I mean, he's an investor himself as well, but he's also done crowdfunding on two different platforms, Republic and WeFunder, and has done over 1 million on those two platforms. So I'd love to have him introduce himself and everything that he has going on, because it's been quite the journey since we've met a couple of years ago now when we first met in New York. But glad to have you here, Phil.
Thank you. Well, that's the funny part, because I've been doing the same thing, but it's only when I started using Instagram that people really realized what I was doing. So, which is so odd to me, kind of. But it makes sense. But yeah, I'm Philip Michael. I'm nice. We're a fintech / real estate development company, tech-enabled real estate company, if you will, where we do what Robinhood does, but just for real estate, but is anchored around an actual portfolio that we own and put up the money for first. So that's what I was doing. Then I put it out to the masses in April, and pretty much started from scratch. And the way that I utilized the Reg CF regulation to issue micro securities to non-accredited investors, which is effectively what crowdfunding is. In that realm, anyway, I more so approached it as a direct listing IPO. As you know, if you want to be an angel investor, if you want to be a VC, you have to be an accredited investor, which is where you can, in those private placements, where you can get the big gains. But there's also where the bigger risk is. So people who aren't accredited investors, which means you basically have to be a millionaire, they don't have access to these opportunities. So what I wanted to do, the way that I utilized it, was that, look, I have this portfolio, come along and own a piece of it, because when the pandemic hit, so many people were concerned about losing their job, losing their health, and all these other things. And I just wanted to be sort of a beacon of hope. Like, look, there's the situation, yes, but what do we do? How can we continue to move forward? So I opened up access, started by offering access to the parent company. And then later, immediately after, I offered access into a specific property that I was developing. So it's a mix of everything. But since we started, we helped 2,000 people become first-time investors in real estate, just about. And what else? And it's just anchored around a mission for the next decade to help 100,000 people become first-time investors and eventually millionaires. So that's how I utilize it. I understand it's been used a lot to raise decentralized capital in smaller chunks, and in that sense for very early stage startups, which is a great way to do it. I just more so looked at it from the standpoint I wanted to offer access to people who may not have known about it, haven't been aware, and because of not being aware and not knowing about it, have been excluded from that type of thing. So that's why I did it. And as Michael said, we did pretty well. We're the fastest real estate company to hit $1 million, and we're going to continue this moving forward. We don't have a single institutional investor in what we do, so it's all self-funded, and it's something we're going to continue to do next year with this avenue. So I'm very much a proponent for it, and just excited to share anything that I can that can be helpful to people.
Yeah, and this is why I love having you here too, because I love your mission and everything that you're about. It definitely hits home with what we're doing too, and just giving just streamlining not only entrepreneurship but investing, and giving access to people who would never otherwise have that outlet to be part of it. So and it's another reason why I love crowdfunding and getting people to, because there's no reason that people shouldn't be able to invest in startups or real estate like what you're doing. So yeah, I think it's amazing. And yeah, for sure. And we can pass things over to AJ. AJ, how's it going, man? Thanks for being here, and would love to have you share a little bit more about your company.
Yeah, absolutely. So hi, everyone. I'm Ajay Bam, CEO and co-founder of Vyrill. So just a quick intro on myself. I've been studying shopping behavior for about 15 years. I previously built and sold a mobile shopping app company, which was venture capital funded in 2009. Then went to work for Nokia, where I launched the App Store in about 35 plus countries. So started my current company, Vyrill, about 4 years ago now, here in the Bay Area. And really the story behind starting Vyrill was I began noticing a trend, which was that a lot of customers are now starting their shopping journeys with video. So people are starting their journeys on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok now is huge. And even Google now, if you search for a product name, it actually shows you shopping ads, text search results, and videos now. And so a lot of brand marketeers are struggling with, how to capture authentic video reviews on multiple platforms in multiple languages, and how to really understand what's happening inside the video. And if someone said something nice about the product or someone made a very negative comment, they want to be able to capture all this content, authentic content, and be able to leverage that for product marketing. So these problems are really the story behind starting Vyrill. So essentially what we do is we are a Google for commerce videos, like reviews, unboxing videos, how-to videos, and more. So any video that really helps customers with their shopping experiences. And we're also one of the very few companies in the world that can actually Google inside the video as well to enable video insights and video commerce. So in a nutshell, what we do is we have trained machines to watch millions of videos across social media platforms and phones, and really understand, capture all the video content, understand it, and then provide tools to brand marketers to leverage all this content for commerce and more. So, I think the best, my vision really is very simple. We want to be the world's largest B2B tool platform for video reviews. That's really what we want to empower at the end of the day. So it's entirely AI and machine learning based, and we analyze the video in 8 dimensions and then score the video to help brand marketers understand it. So yeah, so that's really Vyrill in a nutshell. And we're currently doing a $2 million seed raise. We came out of UC Berkeley from the machine learning lab. And just COVID, of course, slowed down everything. I mean, I just read a stat that early stage funding is down 70% in the last 8 to 9 months. So as I was thinking about, as I decided to do my seed round, I wanted to hedge my bets across both the crowdfunding versus the traditional VC route. And so that's what we're doing. We've actually split our funding across both. We're doing the WeFunder campaign for family and friends and those who think they can write a small check. And then we're also in talks with traditional investors as well to close the rest of the round. So I'll share more as we do the Q&A. Thank you.
For sure. Yeah, I think you have a ton to talk about. And I think everyone here is going to, we're going to have a really cool conversation. I think everyone has a lot to bring to the table and a lot to talk about. And last but not least, I want to pass things over to Lance, who's done a ton of stuff. We actually connected through TikTok. And he's done a ton of stuff with Kickstarter. I think you've raised over like $2 million or something, right, through Kickstarter. And I'd love to have you share a little bit about yourself and your background as well, because I'm super excited to have you here.
Cool. Yeah, so my name is Lance. I'm the co-founder of Gravel, which is a travel accessory company. We started with like a toiletry bag. We make a travel blanket, and we just released like a whole backpack line that all works together. It's a good time. A really good place to be a travel company this year. It's been awesome. No, actually, it could have been way worse, but it's still been going really well. My background, actually, I've been launching Kickstarters for about 8 years, and I've launched more than one per year on average. So over that time, I was able to learn a ton about Kickstarter and Indiegogo. We ended up about, 3.5 years or something is when we launched Gravel. Our first project with no ads or anything raised about $165,000. That was a small toiletry bag. About a year later, we moved to Vietnam to develop more products. And there we launched our second project, which that one between Kickstarter and Indiegogo pre-raised $1.1 million. And then about a year after that, we launched a travel blanket. That blanket did, between Kickstarter and Indiegogo did just under $1 million. And then this year we launched the travel backpack in the middle of a pandemic. And but we still raised about $100,000 for that. So total with Gravel alone, we've raised just over 2 million. But I need to go through and actually figure out my raise for everything, because I've consulted hundreds of companies. I've created Kickstarter projects Kickstarter videos for over 50 companies. So I've been pretty deep into Kickstarter for a second. But then we've also transferred Gravel over to e-commerce, and we've done millions of dollars in e-commerce sales as well. So it's a yeah, it's a good time. The product world's a fun world.
For sure. And I think honestly too, all this stuff, like crowdfunding in general, it's just so even more important now than ever with everything going on and people not being able to travel or meet as many people as they might have used to. So everything just needs to it's making things easier for people to be able to do things virtually right now, which is why I'm super excited to start getting into things. And kind of the first thing that I want to dive into here for everyone, and for anyone who's not super familiar with crowdfunding in general, I'd love, feel free to reach out to me. I don't want to get into necessarily the super basics of it. I'd like to dive a little deeper into some of the strategy behind it. But real quick, the top equity crowdfunding platforms, I just want people to be aware of if they haven't heard of these: WeFunder, Start Engine, Republic, Seed Invest, Net Capital. These are some of the more popular equity crowdfunding platforms, which means you're actually giving up a piece of your company and people can own a piece of that. And then other traditional crowdfunding platforms like Kickstarter, Indiegogo, like Lance was just talking about, and platforms like Elizabeth is part of, iFund Women, they're non-equity platforms. So your people are buying either pre-sales for products, or they're buying or they're investing because they want to see your business succeed. Or they're getting some type of a reward-based platform. And I'd love to have Elizabeth and Lance dive into that here in a little bit. But I want to first kick off the question for why, and this is more for Phil, AJ, and Josh, why did you guys choose to do equity crowdfunding versus a traditional funding round, like pre-seed, angel round, or seed round? Why did you choose to go crowdfunding versus going the venture capital route or angel investing route? And I know some of you have raised from angel investors and VCs too, but I'd love to hear why you chose to do crowdfunding over continuing on that pathway through traditional funding sources.
I'll jump in. I'll go first. In our case, it was really simple. We'd actually done some institutional round before our first crowdfund, but where we got to, we sort of managed to acquire customers incredibly cost effectively, but we hadn't really proved that our customers were going to spend money with our brand or on our product. So we were at an inflection point that a lot of social products get to, where you really start to think, okay, we've got to actually prove that there is a potential revenue model here that will be successful. So we sort of for many years had decided or worked out that subscription was probably going to be our best bet, but we needed to build this subscription product. And no institutional investor, was willing to give us a chance to build that subscription bolt-on, as they used to call it. And we realized, okay, in order to get over this particularly high hurdle in this stage of our company's life, or sort of year 4 at the time, we need to find another way of getting the money to build that module. And we did, and we survived. And as often, well, it's happened to us twice in crowdfunding, when the momentum of the crowdfund campaign starts to grow, institutional investors come sniffing anyway. And in both of our rounds, we've actually done concurrent regulation D raises with our regulation crowdfunding raise. And in both cases, it's looking like they're going to be about equal. So, $500,000 from the crowd, $500,000 institutionally. So yeah, for us, it was a practical decision.
Yeah, most definitely. AJ and Phil, if you guys want to share.
Yeah, so to be honest with you, I had not considered crowdfunding until COVID happened. And I was literally in New York on 13th of March, if you remember, Friday the 13th, of course, and was supposed to start closing my first investor, institutional investor. And of course, the markets tanked, everything paused. So come back. And of course, for the next 5 months, everything is on a pause. So essentially, literally, I start scratching my head. And at the end of the day, I think as an entrepreneur, persistence is very important. And companies that actually make it through persistently through this will survive. And so I wanted to make sure I can survive this time period. And while I was doing that, I was also just checking with a lot of my friends and family. And many of them said, hey, you know what, if you really need funding right now, we would be happy to help. And of course, when you start thinking about having 20 investors, small investors, if I start going down the path of going through my legal attorney it's a very expensive process to raise money from small investors. So that's really when I really started thinking about crowdfunding, and it just happened same time. Both Startup Engine and WeFunder reached out, and one of my investors knew someone at WeFunder and how the campaigns were run and all that. So seriously started considering WeFunder around July timeframe, and then decided very quickly after a couple of meetings with their team that I was going to do this, and quickly jumped on board. And we launched the campaign about 3 weeks ago. We have already raised 40K. And I think we just found our anchor. So for the campaign, and I'll share more on that. But so what I decided was really I'm hedging my bets right now is we're raising 2 million. So $1 million on WeFunder and $1 million through institutional investors. And there's a chance that we might close with institutional investors. And then the good news is our minimum on WeFunder is 50K. So we always have the option to close the campaign at any point if any institutional investors object, or we decide we want to close that we have raised enough, and for equity, giving away equity reasons, we decide to do that. So I think I like the sort of the flexibility. At the same time, I think for us, every dollar counts right now. We just want to make it through Q1 and Q2 of next year. We're focused on video, and as you can imagine, video is all the rage right now. So we're actually growing from both a customer and revenue point of view as well. But being in the AI and machine learning space, talent is very expensive. So I still got to pay my bills and everything. So so far so good. And we just got our anchors, which is the CTO of Airbnb, just invested in the company, and also the chief scientist at Pinterest, and also a top AI professor at Stanford as well. Yuri Leshko is both of them invested in the company. And it's quite amazing. After they invested, we're getting a lot of traction now, and hopefully we'll make it through.
That's amazing. Those are some big names there, man. That's awesome. And I'm definitely excited to see how things progress. I think that's a super smart strategy, very similar to our strategy too, because we are talking to investors as well about putting together our seed round for next year too, because there's definitely is some value that VCs and some strategic angels bring for sure, that you won't be able to get necessarily on crowdfunding platforms. But I'd love, Phil, if you want to talk about your strategy as well.
Absolutely. So one of the reasons that I elected to go the equity crowdfunding route versus institutional investors is very deliberate. It's for a reason. We don't have a single institutional investor, and that's by design. So that's number one. Number two, the entire mission is anchored around. Companies anchored around the mission to give access to people, give people the three pillars really, which is one, information, which I do on social different platforms, and then give people like just that type of information that they need to be informed as it pertains to investments of any kind, really. Number two, community, having people around that are like-minded is so important. And third is access. And that's why I did it in that way, just to give people that access to it. So my pitch was also very, very different, because I own the entire portfolio free and clear. So there wasn't a direct need for capital. It was just more so, think of Slack when they IPO, they didn't do a roadshow. They just said, look, we have a healthy company here. If you guys want to own a piece of it, welcome. If not, cool. Just use it. Just sign up for a subscription. So it was that type of thing where I just wanted to use it as an avenue for people. So I actually offered, which I realized in retrospect, because I wanted to launch it. I know it's different. It's all people have different approaches. My goal was I wanted to sell out in 18 minutes. That's what I wanted to do. And obviously COVID hit. That wasn't a possibility. Well, I'm sure it was. I'm sure we could have. There's always a way, right? But that impeded that for sure. And it wasn't as straightforward. It was definitely a grind. But I put the offering at a discount to value, because I wanted people to make money on the buy. If you're a first-time investor, that's like taking a leap of faith. Think about it this way. If you're a child, you stand around the pool, you think you can swim, but you're not sure. And even though you won't drown because your feet will hit the bottom, you still are afraid of the water. So you're standing there dipping your toes. So I want to make sure you validate that decision, because I think about it from the psychology of a child that's trying to jump in the pool. They want to, but they're not sure. So I wanted to validate that by having to make money on the buy. Later, in retrospect, I realized no one understood it. No one cared. They just wanted to be a piece of it because it's part of a community. And that led me to understanding the it wasn't an investment, it was a purchase. So I'm like, okay, that's an interesting piece of insight. And it would help me understand the process, the psychology of a person that's looking to come in, what it is that they look for. They don't look as much for the numbers and financials, just do they believe in the person that's doing it? Do they feel comfortable with this? Are they doing it for the right reasons? But to your question, Mike, it was a matter of electing to give the access to the people that hadn't had it versus the ones that did. So I, quite frankly, I didn't entertain any institutional investors. Yeah.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. I think there's you were very intentional about wanting to do it that way, which is smart for sure.
And there was no paid marketing behind it either. I never actually sold it. If you notice, so back in April when I started, I just had friends. You know this, Mike. I only had friends and family on my Instagram, and I said, you know what? Let me start doing videos. So I started doing videos and content. And long story short, my Instagram has over 75,000 followers right now. It's grown steadily. And I started that way, and then people got to know me, and I realized I didn't push anything that I was doing. I may have had a link, but I never actually pushed it. And I literally just sought to drive value in the information. And if people asked me about investment opportunities, I said, look, you're going Fundrise, you're going Robinhood, you're going Stash. I have one that I believe in because it's my own, because I own 99% of it. Or it was 4% that was carved out to them. And it's like, oh, me. So if you talk about somebody having skin in the game, I have every single vital organ in the game. So, they said, what happens if I lose it? And I was like, well, I die first, So, okay, all right, makes sense. But I never actually pushed it. They just would look me up and stuff like, and
very organic.
Yeah, and the WeFunder page is where it was. And so that's just sort of how it came about, and it was just engaging with people. But to your direct question, Mike, it was very deliberate, intentional strategy to give the access to the people that we wanted to serve. This is
Definitely. I definitely want to, we'll talk a little bit about marketing and some strategies too.
Sure.
I know Lance is big on that. He has a huge TikTok following too, and we'll dive into that. I'm curious too, from the other perspective now, switching over to more of the like non-equity, non-dilutive funding. Elizabeth, you can kick it off, and then I'd love to have Lance chime in too. Why go, what are the advantages, or why should people consider going that route, than, going to angel investors, VCs, doing a price round, and, dealing with all of that. I'd love that you share.
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, it's interesting that I'm the, lowly female on this panel because of what we do. So we have to remember that only 2.8% of women-owned businesses get like VC backed on a yearly basis, and only 1% of African-American, Black women-owned businesses, any minority women get backed. And so we have to remember the statistics. We are a platform that is dedicated to really helping women at their early stages of funding. And our belief at iFund Women is that you do not have to go into debt funding your early stages of business, nor do you have to give away a portion of your business. I think so many times and so often we read, we read Entrepreneur, we read Inc., we read Fortune, we read all of these things, but a lot of women don't see themselves in those photos or in the stories. So we created an entire platform that said, hey, guess what? We've seen you, we are you. We're going to create a space that we can actually do this. And you don't have to cash out your 401k or your IRA, which I did funding my early stages of my business because I didn't know any better. And the other thing is, and we tapped on this earlier, but somebody was talking about the network. Here's the other reality. A lot of women have no idea, like they don't think that you have friends and family who can actually help out. So our job here at iFund Women is not only to give them the opportunities to say, hey, here's the deal. Rewards-based crowdfunding, you do not have to just have a pre-sale of your product. A lot of times there are a lot of service-based businesses that are trying to fund their companies. Okay, so let's figure out what is it that your friends and family that you do have in your network, what is it that they want? It doesn't just have to be a t-shirt. It doesn't just have to be a social media shout out. Let's figure this out. Let's do some network mapping. Let's figure out who exactly is going to help you fund this business with $5, $10, $20 and continuing to keep you going forward. I think what we have to realize also is, I love when you were talking, I mean, I think AJ said this, but like, it takes drive to keep on moving your business forward as an entrepreneur. And that also means those little wins, the little $5, $10, $25 are so important. And so we're going to be your first stop. We're not the last stop by far, but we are going to be a lot of women's first stop to the funding.
Yeah, and I think it's huge. You're solving a huge problem, which is why I wanted, and we reached out to a lot of women founders, and it was like, we want to open up that dialogue and that conversation with investors and with women founders. You know, Nisha, who's here now, is one of our investors. She was the first, you know, woman on our cap table. You know what I mean? And it was like, you know, we want to. Don Dixon is one of our advisors now, who's raised like I think almost 3 million now from crowdfunding, and you know, we want to open up that and be a resource for women founders for sure. And I think I mean, I don't think anyone's doing it better than you guys for sure. And I think it's great as well that, and why I want to talk about non-equity and non-dilutive funding resources too, because a lot of minority founders, and there's so many grants and opportunities out there now for founders that fit certain industries and demographics and stuff that they can access that they don't even know exists. So I think it's huge, and yeah, I'm really glad you're here and sharing about that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just add this too. I mean, we started this program this year called I Fund Women of Color, understanding even more so that women of color have even less opportunities than white women do. So we have to pay attention to these facts and these statistics when we're going into fundraising. And we understand that it's hard. Like, on top of it, it's that space of, hey, we're hitting COVID, we're having lots of frustrations. We get that. We also want you to know that there's a community component where you can come and you can work at networking, connecting with people. So there are opportunities for you.
Yeah, 100%. We're actually planning, and we'll definitely reach out to you guys again about this. We're planning a big woman entrepreneur summit for February. And we're going to have like a lot of different panels and stuff on.
Great, we're there. We'll totally help.
And all sorts of stuff that I know Nisha will be a part of that too. But yeah, no, it's great. I'm going to also drop in, if people don't know, it's just ifundwomen.com. Some people are asking about where to access that stuff. And you have like the capital and the grants on there too. And obviously the coaching stuff, which is where you help out on there as well. So it's a really great platform for any women who are here in the audience as well. And I'd love to have Lance chime in too on this and the benefits of doing, you know, Kickstarter and Indiegogo versus, you know, trying to raise money from investors. You know, you can get money from your customers to fund your inventory and product, you know, roadmap and all this stuff. So I'd love to have you share about that and why you've done it and helped companies do it, you know, over raising capital.
Totally. Yeah, and I forgot to mention the second company that I started is called Makers Academy. So I'm a co-founder of that as well. So I guess I'm here as Makers Academy, and that's we're creating courses and things to help people develop products and launch on Kickstarter and stuff. So there's that. But the reality is there's really no reason to not crowdfund a product. The biggest issue in creating a product is inventory management, right? Like, for us, our first order for that first Kickstarter was $100,000. We ordered 8,000 toiletry bags. And it's like, if you order that wrong, you could have $80,000 just sitting in a factory somewhere, or not in a factory, I guess, in a warehouse somewhere. And it's like, what crowdfunding allows you to do as a product business is know exactly how many you're going to sell, know the interest, start to understand the customer, get feedback from the customer before you even put a single dollar down, except for sampling and things like that. But so there's not any downfalls really to trying to crowdfund, whether that's on Kickstarter, Indiegogo, pre-selling on your website. Any of those things eliminates a lot of the headaches of like a product-based business.
100%. I think almost any B2C company should look into crowdfunding one way or another. And I'd love to chat now about, and this, I'll kind of open this up to whoever wants to talk about it. what should people know before they do a crowdfunding campaign? Should they do a ton of research? Should they, build a wait list? Should they create an email list? Should they build a following on social media? Should they do all of these? Should they talk to investors to gauge interest before they even start? If anyone wants to share their strategies on what they used before they even kick off the campaign, I think that would be incredibly helpful.
I'll jump in. In our case, the first thing we started with was a survey of, I think we had a mailing list of about 350,000 users at the time. And we just asked a simple question, how would you feel about Vamper if we did equity crowdfunding? And we just asked them to type in an answer. And we sort of analyzed the results and sort of did a bit of a sentiment analysis to see what the response was. And then we followed up with the people who had a positive response. And then we asked them what range would they be comfortable investing in. And we found out within less than 24 hours that there was $500,000 that we potentially could capture from our users. Turns out actually capturing that money takes a hell of a lot longer. So it's easy to let yourself get ahead of yourself rather with that sort of feedback. But you still have to put the work in to actually capture the money and sell the story and make sense of it. But it illuminated to us that it was a viable pathway should we want to go down it. And at that point, we hadn't actually made a decision. So I'd say to anyone who's thinking about it, that's your first step, is whoever your customers are, whether your customers, your mum and your aunt, or it's 1,000 people or whatever it is you're doing, you have some customers, hopefully. And you need to ask them, is it something that they would be interested in having ownership on? And that's your research. And I says the other part of research is actually understanding the difference between the platforms, understanding the law. Some companies probably think they're in compliance ahead of crowdfunding and when they're probably not. So there's certain law firms that exist that will help you actually do that diligence on your own company. Make sure it's in sort of standing order, that you do actually indeed qualify to raise money under Regulation CF. But that's sort of the more technical side of it. Again, it really starts with the audience, I think, and seeing if there is one.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to answer a quick question here on that's going on in the chats about equity crowdfunding and accredited investors. So you can have non-accredited investors invest. Anyone can invest in an equity crowdfunding campaign up to $2,200 per year. So if you're a non-accredited investor, you could invest in one company for $2,200, or you could invest in 5 companies at 200, whatever. You can invest up to 2,200. It's like kind of the limits. I think a lot of this is going to change over the coming years, and there's a lot of stuff because the SEC also just increased the limit on crowdfunding campaigns from 1.07 million to now 5 million. So yes, anyone can invest. That's just one of the advantages of doing an equity crowdfunding, where we can have our users, our friends, family, people who aren't millionaires and have $1 million in net worth or have made $200,000 in 2 consecutive years, also invest in our campaign. Accredited investors don't really have any limits, at least from my understanding of it. They might have to go through another level of approval, and some of these crowdfunding platforms will look into people who are putting in 10, 20K checks into crowdfunding campaigns. But you could also, which we've done, just bypass the crowdfunding campaign and just issue them a safe or shares and stuff on the side and directly onto your cap table, rather than having them go through the crowdfunding campaign. So I just wanted to make sure that was.
There's a slight risk with that, in that the burden of proof is on the company to demand that they prove that they're
also true. Yes.
Yeah. And if you ever did get investigated for whatever reason, that would probably come up, although I do not believe there's ever been a case of that. So,
Yeah, and I don't want to get too off topic here. I just wanted to answer that while it was going on in the chat there. But yeah, getting back to the question, if anyone else wants to chime in on what people should do or know before, if someone's interested in doing a crowdfunding campaign, what are the things that they need to know before they start?
Yeah, I think I just want to add to what was said before. So we're a B2B company versus B2C. So I think we don't have the benefit of like millions of customers. But I think something that I've been very due diligent about from day one when I started the company, it's all about the network. And it's all about collecting email addresses of your network and making sure you have a monthly newsletter. I've been doing it for 4 years now. At least every 6 weeks, I send a newsletter out with what's happening with my company. And so first step is build your network. I think independent of whether you're doing a crowdfunding network or not, you never know who's listening and you never know when you might have to reach out to them. So every email, every person, every VC that rejected me or said yes, they go on my MailChimp. It's okay if they want to opt out, but it's their choice. So I've already accumulated, like I have, even though we're B2B, we have 800 friends, family, advisors of Vyrill or investors that I pitched to in the past, right? So I would say build a network, very important. Send your newsletters. I think keep everyone updated what's happening with your company. So knowing that you're still there is very important. Second is, as Josh mentioned, you just have to do your homework on about different platforms. And I think in my case, I just had to do general homework about crowdfunding. The third, and this is actually one of the reasons I did crowdfunding, was also you got to get your shit and your financial documentation, your legal documentation in place. So it really helps you get your act together with getting everything in place. And I think this has a long-term benefit, which is if you're planning to raise future rounds, investors love the fact that we have already done an independent financial review of all your documents. So we have done that, and that was a lot of work. In fact, crowdfunding, putting a campaign up was relatively, we knew where we were headed with that. But getting all the financials in order has taken 8 weeks, 10 weeks now, almost to do that. And then the other thing I would say is, I think you really need to have sort of an email campaign strategy in place. What is your core messaging? Where do you start? How do you build the momentum? What is your message every week? What is your anchor every week? Is it new customers that you just signed up, or is it someone like the Airbnb CTO who came on board? So we have all these campaigns that we have laid out now for 12 weeks. And we have a strategy around. Now we will tweak that strategy as we go along, because you don't know what you don't know. You don't know how people will react to it. So and then that requires, I would say, getting the marketing campaign in place. I'm very lucky I have someone who's awesome on the team. She had done a Kickstarter campaign before, so she knew how to play this. But there are a lot of consultants and strategists out there who can help you with running these crowdfunding campaigns. So having a very clear articulated marketing strategy is extremely important to get it going. So we're now continuing to build our anchors. And like I said, we have some good investors. We're signing up some great customers. So as we go along, we will continue to build the momentum on the campaign. And something I learned, which just food for thought, is I met a lot of investors, institutional investors, who their fund didn't invest in that vertical, but they were very excited about me and my co-founder and the space. So what crowdfunding does is I actually had 2 institutional investors who just invested yesterday on BeFunder. And it turns out that even though they couldn't invest from the fund, they were just interested in participating and being an investor with Vyrill. So, and because they have the money, they can write a small check. And so they did, received a $5,000 check from 2 investors, institutional investors. Now, by getting in, perhaps they will be my Series A investors when we get there. Who knows, right? So again, the power of networking, I can't underestimate, never underestimate that. It's very compelling and it works.
Totally agree with that. I'm sure Phil is, agreeing with the following too, because I think one of the big, you touched on it earlier too, but I think the social strategy, and I love that Lance talk about that too, with how he helps, he's done it himself, but he also helps people do it. I'm sure marketing is a big part of that. But Phil, I'd love to have you talk on that.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things I heard you mention was the fact that a newsletter was sent out. That's just one touch point for people to get to become familiarized with you, to get to interact and engage with you. I think that's very important. In terms of what to start with, I didn't really do anything in terms of, I didn't really have a built-in user base like that. I didn't work anyone beforehand said, hey, or sent anything out, because as was mentioned before, I think it was Josh that said it, that even though people expression of intent doesn't mean that a deal is solidified. That can just be an emotional, impulsive reaction to that proposition that's brought before you. So that doesn't mean much until you only validate that hypothesis of someone's interest is when they actually pay for it. So one of the things that I did, I just wanted to double down and make sure that the story was told in a way that really resonated with people. So what I would say, if I was asked directly what advice would I give, I would just say double down on your story, understand your identity, and figure out how your identity and your story, why it matters to the person on the other side, and figure out for those two to meet. So, and what do I mean by that? Let's say you are I'm struggling to come up with something. Let me just use my own example. There are a lot of people out there in life right now that are frustrated about money, health, whatnot, and just offering a way for the current situation to become an opportunity. And then that way the story is told. So I would just say, figure out what it is, tell the story concisely, compactly, succinctly, in a way that resonates with your audience. That's the number one, there's a frictional disconnect between your men. And that just goes down to how we are as human beings. Otherwise, disagreements would never exist. It's one of the biggest challenges we have. Get what's in here, and the only medium with which we have to use it is our words. So get what's in here, out here, and received in the person's mind the same way you intended it. And it never really gets that way, but the closer you can get to that, and with the emotional resonance behind it, I think that's really as vague and qualitative as it sounds, that really, to me, is what drives a successful campaign. Just understanding the psychology of the other person and how you add value to them, and how what you're doing, instead of going, and that's another mistake I see a lot of people do, is they go out and they try to raise money. Hey, fund me. That's the wrong way to do it. It's like opportunity. And then you just float it out there. And for instance, you never want to be back against the wall. If I have a situation, that's the thing you figure out with experience. For instance, there was a deal that I was closing, and I want to make sure the sources of capital were lined up correctly. Instead of putting all my eggs in one basket in terms of my avenue, I make sure I have three, so I can always be think of this is a primitive analogy, but it makes so much sense. You ever watch that show, The Bachelor? And he can pick between intrinsically, each one of those loses their value because he's the one who has the option. And that's how sort of you want to treat a capital, which is tough to do when, because most times you're like, oh my God, I have to make payroll next month and this and that. But we were in that position too. Don't get it twisted. And there was nothing that Crowdfunding could have done, because we had a development project, and I had two avenues of capital. One was from overseas, 2.5% for 2.5 million to build this building, which came from a Danish bank because I'm Danish, which was a hookup of the highest order because they don't fund trans across the Atlantic. That was a hookup of the highest order. And I thought to myself, this is non-restrictive capital. I can use it for anything that I want to. Let's use that to be aggressive and look for new deals. Then I had a construction loan lined up here. COVID hit, I had nothing. Meanwhile, I have 134,000 overhead every single month, and I have to be up like, oh my God, how do I figure this out? I can't place that on the investors. It's none of their business. I'm only giving them access to the equity and to the assets. I have to figure this out. And then once we did, because I then went to some institutional people like, look, can you give me a bridge? I need this happen. And the other side would be good. Nothing happened. You sort of reeks of desperation. Nobody. Long story short, we had to figure it out. I just had to bankroll it out of pocket. We figured it out, got on the other side. Now we can pick and choose between the capital. And we have more equity as leverage. So now I can pick and choose, like The Bachelor. Anyways, I got a little bit off course here, but the psychology of it is just serve and add value, not necessarily like, please, which is so hard to do when you really need money to move forward. But it's got to find a way. And if your focus, to me, is on the story and how this service is done, you come across less needy and salesy, because you're really doing it to help people and give opportunity. So that's
I think story is a huge part of it. And especially like the video on your crowdfunding page, like the story is very meaningful. And I think that was definitely the first Bachelor reference that we've had at any of our events. So that's another first for Phil there. But Lance, I know you wanted to chime in here too.
Yeah, honestly, that's one of my favorite things is I think you're spot on. Essentially what you're trying to do in crowdfunding in general is not begging, but you're saying, okay, how can I make this person put themselves as a part of my company?
Bingo.
So like with us, we're trying to get them imagining using this product. That's our entire point. Once they like imagine themselves using our product, they're sold, because they're like, okay, it's not, can I get this? It's like, okay, I need this in my life. And I think that goes across the board with marketing in general. You want that person imagining like what their life would be like if you were involved in it.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to have Elizabeth share a little bit about her thoughts on this. And I know you guys have some like you do a lot of educational stuff on
I
your
have
platform.
it like ready to be pasted. So thank you.
Awesome.
Okay, so here's the deal. So we, our founders actually started on Kickstarter initially. They had a whole different product, and they had this fantastic opportunity to get funding for a production company, and realized the difficulty it is for women to actually find those networks and the connections. And these are women who are incredibly well connected and have raised lots and lots of money already. So you have to understand, like, I love all the things that you guys are talking about. I think it's fantastic, but you have to play the whole other thing. Like, there are women on this call that can't actually do exactly what you're all talking about. So I love that you're doing that, but I just want to point out there's not enough resources for them to get the education. So iFund Women was created. So we have the iFund Women Playbook. So I'm posting this right now. Hold on. The iFund Women Playbook is basically everything that you're talking about. So how do you map your network? What's the next step on where you're going? Your sales strategy, all of the things that you are needing to actually do a reward-based crowdfunding and your early stages of your business. So what's your sales strategy? I mean, one of the things are, like, you're all talking about like marketing, and I think marketing is one part of it, and then sales after you've done crowdfunding. Where do you keep on going afterwards? We have to make sure that our products still exist. I love what you said, Josh, earlier about making sure, like, these are to test your company. This is to test if your product is actually something that is wanting to be out there. It's totally true. We don't always know. We have these great ideas in our head, but we don't always know if it's ready for the market. If the market doesn't want it, then what can we do to shift our product or our services to make it so that the market will actually buy and purchase what we are selling? So I think that is why go into rewards-based crowdfunding with the knowledge of education. Make sure that you are prepared. And the other thing is, there are a lot of crowdfunding opportunities out there. A lot of them, though, are all or nothing platforms. So be aware of that. What that means for some of you who are just now into this or new into this, that means that you set a goal and you actually have to meet that goal to get any of the funding you've raised. And that can be devastating. So what iFund Women did was said, hey, we're a flexible platform. We know that things happen. We know that COVID happens. We know that there are a lot of women who are moms and have had to then go back to be homeschooled. That should not stop you from having to stop your business and funding for your company. So you can you can extend your goal. You can extend your time frame of your campaign. So that's why we think it's really important to have a flexible platform as well. So yeah,
thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, and I think the playbook is phenomenal. I would encourage anyone to check that out. And I think, like, for us too, I knew about crowdfunding for a long time, and I contemplated it for a while, and I did a lot of research and education on, number one, what platform was going to be best, like, how should I go about it, are people even going to be interested, what should our goal be, what should the cap be, all these things. And I think it's cool because you make it very, very easy to do that. And I think the flexibility is interesting. I think a lot of platforms are going to actually copy what you guys are kind of paving the way for too. You're on mute.
We've noticed.
Yeah.
We can be a trendsetter that way.
No, it's good to be paving the way for sure. And Elizabeth, we can stick with you too. And so what are the best crowdfunding campaigns that you've seen? What, like, now that we've talked about what should they do beforehand once the campaign's going, because most of these last 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and sometimes a lot of campaigns maybe even longer than that. But what are what do people need to know? Like once the campaign's going, they just expect people to just start investing and raising all this money, but that doesn't happen. Like for us, like, you know, we've only been live for like a month, and yeah, we've raised over 50K and whatever, but like, it's, you know, I'm having a lot of conversations. I'm reaching out to a lot of people. Like we're doing a lot of marketing and all this stuff. And, you know, we were kind of low key about it, you know, because we wanted to, you know, build it up first before we really started, you know, promoting it and have some money there so that people weren't like, oh, no one's even investing in this. So what, like once people have the campaign going, what should be their strategies for like continuing over the course of months as the campaign's going on to do? Yep. And what strategies have you seen work really well for people that have raised a lot of money?
Yeah, thanks. So there's a few things. First off is continuing, AJ said this earlier, making sure that you have that email marketing list and keeping people updated. You have the opportunity to update your funders throughout a campaign. Kickstarter has this, Indiegogo has this. Most every time you have a campaign going, continue to keep those funders informed, because sometimes they invest and then they forget, like, oh, they're done, they've hit their money, and then it's like one and done and they forget about you. That's not true. Make sure that you stay top of mind. Top of mind is always the first thing within sales. That I'm our sales strategy coach. You haven't noticed yet. And so the other thing that I wanted to also point out with that, as there is a plateau that hits in crowdfunding. When you get to that plateau and you need that momentum, think of ways on, okay, do a webinar, do a way of networking to people, making sure that you are adding yourself into new opportunities. If you don't have a referral program, or if you haven't reached back out to those people who've already funded your campaign, do that. See who they know, who they can connect you to, and use this line. I tell this to people every day. Say, who do you know who I should know? And then if that doesn't work, who do you know who I should know and you will connect me to? Follow up with them. Continue to be consistent with them. That has proven time and time again for our funders, because the more that you engage with them, the more they get to feel a part of it, and the more that they want you to succeed. So they're going to continue to say, yep, here we go. Yeah,
Can I just add to that? So
Please.
I view crowdfunding as a snowball, and plateau thing is so spot on. We were in a plateau last week, and then we manufactured a way to get the snowball rolling again. And as in the last 24 hours, we've done about, I think, $30,000 or something. We've done about 60,000 this week. And that was after a couple of weeks where we only did about 3,000 or 4,000. So the reason I bring that up, and I don't mind sharing that and being honest, it's pretty much public information anyway, right? But the reason I bring it up is because as soon as I shifted to thinking of it like a snowball, we had a lot more success in it. So anytime you can start to see that snowball slowing down, or maybe it's because the cliff is straightening out, and that's, you know, events like COVID or whatever, you know, an election that really hurt us. Actually, election week was fucking terrible. But when you see those things coming, you can plan around it. So we started to plan some things that I call them like manufacturing market forces. That's the word that I use. And you're creating, like, we worked with another crowdfund website to promote crowdfund things, to do a promo that we were going to drop our price for a week. And so we manufactured this FOMO, and FOMO is one of the most valuable drivers in a crowdfund campaign. So we manufactured FOMO midway through a campaign. Usually you only get the FOMO at the start or the end. And so you can do things like that. And that comes back down to planning, and really sort of planning, hopefully in advance, and having, I call them triggers. And I like to think any campaign probably needs about 5 or 6 triggers, and each one of those triggers can restart it when it does plateau, and start to get that snowball rolling again. And hopefully, if you do it really well, the snowball never stops rolling, because you're just pushing it along every time it starts to sort of seem like it might be slowing. But I'm not an expert at that, but we've done okay.
Lance, what have you seen work well as the campaigns get going? Like, are you doing a lot? Do you recommend people are doing a lot of paid advertising, or are they doing influencer campaigns? Are they just reaching out to a ton of people on LinkedIn or, you know, social platforms organically? Are they doing PR and press? What have you seen work well?
So we actually run a lot of ads. That's kind of one of the biggest differences between our campaign that did $165,000 versus the one that broke $1 million, was we really got ads figured out. So that definitely helps on that plateau or that lull in the middle of the campaign. The other thing is we try and line up press periodically through the campaign. So we usually run 60-day campaigns. So we try and have press kind of pushing out every couple weeks. I'm not sure with the other platforms, but with Kickstarter specifically, search is actually a big part of the platform. So almost all of our campaigns, it's been 50% of the traffic has come and conversions have come from Kickstarter, and 50% is what we drove. So because of that, we try and space everything out so that we can continue to show up on like the trending page. And if you can show up really well within the trending page, then it kind of minimizes that plateau in the middle a lot more than it almost every platform has that like major plateau and you think your life's over, you know. But if you can space that out and try and stay on that popular page, then it helps minimize that. But
for sure. Phil, I know you've gotten a lot of press. Did you see that help for your campaigns and stuff? Did you use that to leverage as you were growing? Honestly, was there any strategy behind that?
Honestly, I thought this was, I really have to be mindful and careful about how I answer that because we didn't get anything at all, any press like that. I thought we would. I thought it was an obvious, because I saw some companies get publicized that just expressed an idea to do something. I literally put up all my money for this, for other people to then get in at discounts for the right reasons. It wasn't, we literally stayed away from institutional capital. So I was very disappointed in that, honestly. But I'm grateful for it also because it just allowed us, I was thinking, oh my God, we get this press, it's gonna sell out quickly, or we get this person involved, it's gonna sell out quickly, but it was none of that. We didn't get any alley-oops, any layups. It was just a tough grind, just daily. We were very consistent every single day for the months that we had it up on both platforms. None really, I think Republic got us a little boost from their database, but other than that, our entire offense all came from pretty much 90-some% from Instagram, from people following that and being curious. So there wasn't a boost. We were hoping for one, but in retrospect, it's cool because you just have that consistency. It was pretty much every day we were averaging that. We tried different things, and the different things never really worked. I'm not great at the SEO and the ad spend. We tried some ads and nothing happens. I was like, let's just drop it. And so it was really just being consistent. But I think that consistency, because I'm thinking to myself, that has to be rooted in something. And the main driver of consistency was just what I was putting out on Instagram daily. So that was, as long as I was doing that, that's like the 80-20 rule, like 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. And that was just like, I just figured out what it was. Yeah, and I can say that. I just saw that this is where it was coming from, and the other things, the press. But to your question, we have ended up getting it because of what we accomplished. So so that helped, and you know, again, that helped. But I thought it would have. I've heard that it's helped other people. Obviously, it doesn't hurt, but we didn't really get anything. We had one Forbes article in February, which mostly covered my nephew. It didn't really talk much about us. But other than that, it was. Later on, a lot of it came, but not initially, no. But it does help. It does help.
For sure.
It does help. So it's critical, actually, if I have to say. It's actually very important, critical. I just wish we'd have had it because it would have been so much. We would have knocked it 20 minutes, I'm telling you, but we just...
Press are unlikely to cover anyone unless you're an established name from the outset, because raising capital in and of itself is not an actual story, right? Press covers stories. And just because you're raising money doesn't make anyone...
It depends on how you position the story. I disagree somewhat because that wasn't the story that we'd be doing. I
understand. And you had a more, you actually have a socio-economic sort of benefit.
Yeah, of course. And it wasn't just lip service. I literally put up the money, gave it to people at a discount. So that was one thing, but
I wasn't talking about your case specifically. I just meant
you're right, absolutely.
General, like folks who go out and start a crowd, like a WeFunder page, and they go, oh, Forbes is going to do a story on day one and we're going to sell out. That's unrealistic thinking, I think.
Yeah. And I also, on top of that, that's why we push so hard to have like as incredible of like a first 3 days as possible, because all of a sudden it becomes a story, right? It's like, oh, these guys pre-sold $200,000 of toiletry bags in 3 days. All of a sudden you have that story versus like a really generic.
Both rounds that we've done, we launched with $100,000 we knew we had committed. because it did become a story, and the music press picked it up, and some tech press picked it up, and it didn't actually move the needle, but it gave that social proof that's so important for the everyday investors, the mum and pops, the people on your mailing list. When they see that you've launched a crowdfund campaign, there's nothing better than the next thing them seeing is Forbes wrote about it, and that's that's planning. That's just planning.
100%. Yeah, and there's different, obviously free press is great, but you can also reach out to, there's ways to do pretty fairly cheap paid PR campaigns and stuff as well. But AJ, I'm curious your thoughts on, because I mean your campaign's going on right now. What have you been doing to keep the ball rolling and keep the momentum up, like Josh and Elizabeth are saying too?
Yeah, so I think there's two things. One is, of course, the email, but I'm individually reaching out to a lot of investors and friends and family. Like, I think there's something about writing a personal note and saying,
how are you reaching out? Cold email, LinkedIn, what are you?
No, there's two things. I have a template that I ask to pass forward from friends to friends. So, which is very easy. It has some testimonials from my anchors, both my two key investors, and also some more information about the company as well. So where I'm trying to leverage, not just the network I have, but the networks they have as well. And it also just has blown my mind away. And you don't believe until it happens is 50% of my investors or people who have funded now on WeFunder are people I don't know. And so I'm also, to your point, I'm reaching out to them individually as well. And, it's also interesting to see why they funded the company, right? So you can use their input, feedback to tweak the messaging. What did they like? What did they not like? What could we do better on the messaging and all that, right? So I'm trying to leverage that. I think, to be honest, I'm still trying to figure out whether, because we're B2B, whether we should do an ad campaign on LinkedIn or Facebook. So I'm still torn about that, whether we should do it or not. So we'll still choose.
It's expensive, man. LinkedIn is expensive to run.
I would say
I'd recommend
LinkedIn.
But so I welcome any feedback on that. Do you recommend doing a LinkedIn?
You are B2B.
Josh, do you recommend doing a LinkedIn campaign, ad campaign?
I've never I messed around with it once, and it was just it was a waste of money basically.
Yeah, okay.
It's so much more than Facebook, right? For us, it made no sense. For some B2B companies, I've heard some people have mixed results with it, but it's expensive. So we are going to move on to, we will be taking, I think we'll have time for a couple questions, but before we get to Q&A, if you have a question, shoot me a private message on the chat and we'll try to answer it. So before that, I want to kind of wrap up here with the last question around where do you all see crowdfunding going, right? Do you see this as becoming way more mainstream than it has previously? Do you think that anyone who's starting a business should be looking into this at least as an option, before they start thinking about raising money from other places? And a lot of people when they're starting out think that they have to raise money from investors or they have to get a loan or all this other stuff. So I'm curious where you all see the future of crowdfunding going. Not sure whoever wants to kick it off can get going, and then we'll go into a couple questions here real quick before we wrap up.
I can start. Sorry, did you ask me? Sorry.
Oh, yeah, no.
Already are chatting me with their questions, and I was like, great, I'll go ahead and get started. So the future of crowdfunding. I mean, I think COVID has definitely seen a lot of players come to the table. So Facebook, Instagram did their whole entire, you can continue to have the fundraising link immediately through a post now. It's pretty simple. So I think what we've seen in the crowdfunding world is that it's continuing to grow, and it's not just for products anymore. It's not just for, if you're reward based, it's not just Kickstarter anymore. And if it's, and it's not just equity crowdfunding. So I think it's going to continue to keep on growing and give people more opportunities to start companies.
For sure. Anyone else have thoughts on the future of it?
I think the space is going to mature from an industry perspective. So I think you're going to see the various platforms find ways to become more profitable so that they can provide better customer service so that we can run smoother campaigns. That's all just part of the maturity of a new industry, because it is still a very new sector. There's, as any new sector, there's a few little kinks to work out still, but it's already in a massive growth period. This time last year, I think in December, there were $10 million raised from across all the major platforms. And this year, it's going to be at least double that. So it's growing massively, which provides opportunity for founders, but it also means that it's getting noisier, right? And when anytime something gets noisier, that means that there'll be another solution to help you cut through the noise, and there's going to be grifters, and there's going to be people who promise you that they can change the world. But I think the key thing to always remember is, if you've got a great story and a great opportunity, what Philip was saying, if you've got a great opportunity, that's going to be the best way to help you cut above the noise. I don't think any platform, any ad agency, any under the table sort of, we'll give you cash if you give us some, whatever, that won't help you if you haven't got a good story. And that's the essence of crowdfunding. And it's why it's such a beautiful thing when it works.
I have some thoughts also to that point. I think because of what's happened with the SEC increasing the minimum limit for Reg CF and Reg A Plus, and of course it's being early in the inception of equity crowdfunding. I don't even like that term. I think of it more as a direct listing IPO. And I think what we're seeing now with the industry, where it was really trial tested, which is for early stage startups, so people could really see how it works. I think that's going to be a fringe segment of how Reg CF and Reg A is used. I really think it's going to be the same players, but I think you're going to see more established company look to this as an earlier avenue to really offer public securities to the public, really. Another thing is, it's just a matter of, the most important piece of this is just having community. And community can be very vaguely defined, but just people that you interact and engage with on an ongoing basis. But that's what I think is going to happen. Just like you saw, I go back to this example with Slack going public without a roadshow. That's what I think. I think with the 75 million, and again with the 5 million, now it actually makes sense for some companies to list things like that. So it's not just going to be early stage startups. I've seen a situation where a company that went past Series A and they were doing their Series A or Series B round. I forget it. It was one in our sector. Actually, I think they were struggling with the messaging. There's still that disconnect between institutional assets and the language that takes place there, and hitting the user where they are. I think they're struggling with that, which may have impeded their growth somewhat. But anyways, they're doing that. I think we're going to see more of that, things that are doing, people that are doing that later stage. Because there's another component that people aren't talking about really, is that once you move further along, the VCs, because a lot of times they sit in a position of leverage and they know that, so they can. It's not always the best to get VC capital.
Kind of like the gatekeepers.
Huh?
They're like the gatekeepers in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and they can really gouge you, especially for a number of reasons. And I think you can have a more even playing field if you have a community, and that can help you in your leverage. I forget who it was. I think it was AJ that's doing a mix of a hybrid of institutional and non-accredited. I think that's an excellent component, particularly if you're able to drive the community momentum to the point where you can walk in and say, "You need me. I don't need you." And that alters the conversation entirely. And then you can do like wild stuff for no reason, like how you sit there in rooms and they'll cut you off every other second. You cut them off. You're leaning over the table. You flex your muscles, and then you go to the next one. That type of stuff. I'm sorry. That's just my personal.
Yeah.
But that's what I think you'll see in the future.
For sure. No, totally. And I want to get into questions here before we have to wrap up. I know maybe some of you might have to jump off at 7:30 here. I just want to be respectful of everyone's time. And we have a couple of questions. We have a lot of questions coming. I think that this one's actually super interesting. I'd love to get your guys' thoughts on this. People asking about, there's one person here who's asking about how to avoid maybe some copycats in the space. I'm not sure, Elizabeth, if you've seen this, or Lance, if you've seen this, like how when people are launching a product or a company, they're always afraid of people trying to copy their product or their business. And, at the early stages, like with crowdfunding being so public of of an offering, is there any ways that people should be thinking about that before they roll out?
Can I say something?
Oh, hey.
What's that? Who is that? No, yeah, Daryl. No, this is just for Pamela. Sorry. Go ahead, Lance. Yeah.
I was like, huh, that's a new face. I haven't seen that guy. Yeah, so for me, I have a pretty non-traditional stance on this. My stance is just ignore the copycat. No matter what, whether you have
I'm with you.
Yeah, whether you have a patent, whether you can do whatever you want, you're going to have copycats. And yeah, you just got to power through it. Like, I'm literally on TikTok right now. I'm doing a series where I started sketching a product, and I'm going to have a longer form of it on YouTube, but where I'm literally going through every single process from sketching the product to finding samples to getting manufacturers to all along the way. And someone can come and rip me off. And this whole time, like, my gut's telling me, stop doing this because someone's going to rip me off. So I even have that feeling. And I keep telling myself, okay, let them. The reality for me is, by doing this is going to create a bigger presence for me online, both on TikTok and on YouTube, than those people will have. So, okay, I'll beat them anyway because I'm being vulnerable and really just ignoring the copycats.
Here's the thing about that. The key product is not what you're building, it's you. Because there's one thing in the deliverable, and what creates the community, creates the trust, it comes from the personal interaction, and nobody can duplicate you. It's the same thing with Michael. Michael hosts these events, he's the face of these events. Somebody can create a carbon copy, a direct replica of Entre, and it wouldn't be the same thing because it misses the most critical and most important component, which is that. And the same thing goes for all founders. Even if someone were to recreate a Tesla, call it Besla, they don't have Elon Musk, so it doesn't even matter. So I literally have not the single concern or trepidation. I think it's the most irrational. I understand it, but it's very, very rational. Someone can come out and do what I do. In fact, I'm sure there are others that do it, but they cannot duplicate me. So it means absolutely nothing. And the same for you, for all of you. There's nobody, someone that
They've got to have the energy. They've got to have the energy and the hustle and the domain experience and your life experience and all that.
Personal trust. That doesn't. You can't just recreate that. Money can, but no, nothing.
Totally.
Well, and at the end of the day, I think it's whoever does it best is going to continue to be up on top. Who continues to show up and do that. That's going to be the person who continues to be the main player in it. So.
Don't waste your money on trademark. Well, no, trademarks are probably worthwhile, but sorry, patents. I was going to, trademarks is fine, but don't go and patent something that's not in the marketplace. If it's just an idea, save your money and put it into your campaign or put it into your development, your business development. Because if your idea is truly great, people are going to copy it anyway. They're going to find a way to copy it. And
I'll just say this: that it's very hard to replicate hustle, persistence, network, and team. You can copy the product, but these other four things, you can. It's unique.
Well, you can literally go on Amazon right now and buy our exact toiletry bag. We sell it's called the Explorer Plus. We sell it for $79. You can go buy a knockoff version of it for, I think, like 18 bucks on Amazon right now. And we could be like super worried about that. But the reality is we have the branding, our quality is higher, our warranty's better. Like, everything else about the company is significantly better. So we haven't seen a single dip in sales, even though we don't even sell on Amazon currently. So I don't know. I just think I hear that more than anything else. Like, what if you get ripped off? It's like, okay, just make sure you're better than them. As long as you're better, you'll win.
And can I add this, is that I think stop paying so much attention to all the other products that are out there, and you still have to continue, make the sale, continue to make sure that you are having a product that people want. And that's your answer. So then keep on doing that, stay your course, stop diverting to all the other players that are out there. Just keep on going.
100%. I think if you look at some of the, even some of these, like, a lot of successful entrepreneurs talk about literally all they care about is just the customer experience. As long as your customers are happy, nothing else really matters, because they're going to continue to buy your product or your next product, and they're going to continue to support you, and they're going to continue to talk about you because they like it so much. And I think that's the only thing that anyone really needs to focus on. And for us, like building an app, it's all about user experience, right? Like, it's a little bit different in the sense that, our focus is making sure that people are enjoying using our app, they're coming back consistently, and they're excited to tell other people about it too. So if they're not having a great experience with our product, service, whatever, then that's on us. And we need to make sure that that's better before we even do more and more. So like, it's hard in the early stages in some cases, but 100%, I love this. And I think that's super, super important. I know we're coming up on time here. If anyone has to jump off right now, any of the panelists have to jump off, they can say their final remarks. If people want to stay on real quick, we'll dive into one more question here. But I just wanted to open up in case anyone had to run, because I know Josh, I think you have.
Yeah, I got to bounce
going on.
I'm going to give the final plug. This is my pitch video, V2. Do check out our page, please, if you're interested.
Yeah, drop the link in the chat.
I will drop the link in the chat. So, Vamper is, as I said at the start, it's a social professional network for the music industry. It's mobile first. Came up with the idea simply because if you speak to anyone who's ever worked in any creative industry, and especially musicians, you will find that they all spent a significant amount of time building a team, and that the team was ultimately responsible for getting them to some level of success by any metric of how you measure success. And I was very fortunate that I found that success, but it took me about 10 years. And most people, it takes 5 to 10 years of just sheer, not dissimilar to running a business, just sheer hustle and persistence. So I actually called my old label boss and said, do we think that this is a technological problem, or a problem that can be solved, technologically? And his answer was, hell yeah, let's go get it. 6 years later, we've got about 700,000 users. It's going gangbusters. We have a lot of fun doing it, and we live it, we breathe it. So check out our page. I'll drop the link in the chat. And thank you for putting up with my annoying hybrid accent for 90 minutes.
You're good, Josh. I'm so glad you were able to make it, and love everything that you're doing. And yeah, make sure you drop the links and stuff so people can learn more or connect with you afterwards. But
I put my email up there earlier as well, so you can hassle me and I'll hassle you back.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.
For sure. Does anyone else have to jump, or?
Yeah, I have to run as well. So thank you,
Okay.
Michael. Thanks everyone for listening, and please connect. I just put my LinkedIn on the chat. So thanks everyone.
Amazing. Yeah, thanks, AJ. Yeah, make sure you drop your notes or your contact and stuff in there, and everyone check out. It's funny too, because we weren't planning to have all three of like at least the equity crowdfunding panelists to have just WeFunder, but it worked out, and I'm glad because I do think it's one of the best out there, and definitely check out their campaign, and love everything that you're doing, AJ, and glad you were able to make it, man. All right. Well, I'm glad, Elizabeth, do you have to run too? Are you good? Okay. All right, cool. So our last, we have a couple other questions here that are coming in. One is actually around TikTok. So it'd probably be good, Lance, to answer that one. We've actually seen at least like 1 to 2K from our campaign come directly from TikTok too. And Ryan's been connecting with a ton of people, and it's a really interesting platform to garner at least interest. I mean, not only were we able to get some investors from it, but we were also able to get a lot of users from TikTok too. It's one of our best channels to acquire users. So I'd love to have you share about that. And then I think, we have a person from TikTok who's actually here. Brandon, what's up? And then Elizabeth or Phil, if you want to talk about how powerful some other social platforms can be for crowdfunding campaigns as well.
Cool. Yeah, for me, I saw a real opportunity in TikTok. We kind of think of TikTok as this weird, like, social platform that 15-year-old girls are dancing on, That's still, like, the mindset that everybody has with TikTok. But we also, a lot of us, well, I was young enough at the time, but when Instagram started becoming really popular, adults didn't feel comfortable there either, right? Like, there's kind of these transition periods. And so right now, TikTok is in growth mode. So it is so easy. I've been on there for like 6 weeks, and I've gained just over 20,000 followers. And obviously that's pretty exponential as well, right? The more videos that are on there, the bigger the following will grow. So I think there's a huge opportunity with TikTok right now. It's pretty much like being on Instagram in 2014. If you just push it super hard, you can get a following. And for me, it's kind of a long-term play, right? I know that right now, I'm not necessarily going to have a lot of conversions to our course. I'm not necessarily going to be able to sell a lot of product because the user base is, the majority is younger. But 6 months, 12 months, 18 months from now, when my following is super large, then all of a sudden I'm getting pushed to all the people who are spending money that are coming over. So for me, it's definitely a long play that I've seen a lot of success so far with, and I think is still very, very underrated.
For sure.
I guess on top of that too, before I switch, is it's been really, really cool for networking. Like, it surprisingly, and I think because it's kind of this like innovative niche there of like people that are like, yeah, I'm gonna make TikTok what I want TikTok to be. And so it's like, it's a really cool platform. I've been able to connect with people that I never ever would have, that have millions of followers, and just chat with them, because it's pretty underserved at the moment. So you can connect with really cool people.
For sure. And it's crazy too, because it's how we met, right? And Ryan, who's our content and community manager, is on there. Our username is just at Join Entre. I think yours is what, at Makers Academy. Is that right?
Yeah, it's just at Makers Academy.
Yeah. So definitely, I mean, we're posting a ton of videos on there. We're also featuring entrepreneurs and startups too. Ryan's doing a lot of that. So if anyone wants to get featured on our TikTok, just hit us up, and we're doing that as well. Elizabeth, I'm not sure if you've seen a lot of companies use TikTok, but maybe even talking about how some of them have used other social platforms. If you've seen that work well too.
Yeah. So I'm not our social media person, so I have to be really careful about this. We're still on Instagram. We are doing like reels and things like that. Because the reality is Instagram is pushing a lot of anybody who's wanting to do reel. They're like, oh my gosh, you can get all these followers really quickly. So we're really encouraging people to try and do that if they're wanting to grow their audience. First and foremost, like this goes back to earlier, like just to make sure that if you are taking your business onto social media, make sure then to take your followers off of social media into another place, like email marketing, or actually converting them. So making sure that you can actually, because you have to remember social media will, it's a great marketing tool, but they, at the end of the day, get to own all of the information that is shared. So just keep that in mind when you are moving forward on crowdfunding campaigns on there or your business on social media.
For sure. And I know, Phil, like you built a great following, and I know you also built an email list too.
Yeah, not through the following directly.
Actually,
the way we did that, we did a real estate. So it is all about migrating them over. How is a bit tricky, especially intrinsically in the Instagram platform. It's really difficult to get people off of there, it seems, because one, you can't post a link. You can do it in stories, which don't get a lot of, it just gets a percentage of your following onto them, and even less of those that jump off on it, which I think it might be by design, I think. But what we did to build a list off Instagram is we would do a webinar series, and we did one real estate webinar series and real estate wealth building webinar series in August, and 25,000 people signed up in 48 hours, and people are still signing up for that for whatever reason. I don't know. It's like 36,000 now. So that's one such way that we've done that. I mean, there's a list from WeFunder and Republic, which is minimal, and I suppose they came from Instagram anyway, so we just got them there and took them out. But yes, it is. I still haven't found like a secret sauce for that to really migrate them over, but it is very important. One of the ways that what we're testing now is creating a consolidated place for all our followers to come and check out the different things that we do, whether it's webinars, Facebook Lives, Instagram stuff, and just consolidating them into a platform that we own ourselves. And that's one of the things we're building. We actually just finished building it. And then you have to actually put in a password, and you have to request a password through your email to enter. And then from there, then you're in, and then creating a subscription product around that. So that's another way of migrating them over in a way that adds value to people instead of just, I get it, you got to collect the emails, but I want to do it in a way where they volunteer it versus me taking it as like a transaction.
100%. That's everything. I mean, at the end of the day, all it is like you need to present an offer that people want, whether it's a free ebook, whether it's an event, whether it's a community, whether it's access to whatever, right? For us, like, we use events as a way to grow our community. That's how we started all of this, with our in-person events and all sorts of other stuff. At the beginning, when I first started all of this, it was literally just Instagram, landing page to a private Facebook group. So the only way they would be able to get access to the Facebook group is if they put their email in first, right? And there's so many different strategies, but the only way to get people to put in their email or to sign up for stuff is you have to create something that people want. I think events are a fantastic way to do it. Virtual events are pretty saturated right now with like everyone doing them, but there's still a way to do it. And if you can create an event around a topic like crowdfunding or something that people are interested in, you can leverage that as a way to grow your email list and your following. I think podcasts are another interesting way that, some people can maximize. Podcasting is very saturated right now too. So it is tricky, but I think at the end of the day, whatever it is, figure out what you're following or the type of following that you want is interested in, and create some free thing for that. And you can use that to grow your email subscribers. You can also use different software and stuff, and use LinkedIn and different ways of getting emails in a in a little bit of a I guess opting in way, like we were talking about. But yeah, I think that's huge. And I want to wrap up here too, because I know we're going on almost 2 hours now. So I just want to thank everyone for coming out. I'm gonna drop the link to our YouTube channel here where the replay will be. And I'd love for the panelists, for people who came on late or just coming on, please let people know where they can find you, what's the best way for them to reach out, and if they have any questions, where should they contact, or where should they learn more about crowdfunding and all of that. We can do ladies first. If Elizabeth, you'd like to go first and share where people can learn more about iFund Women and about you, or if they have questions and stuff, where should they follow up?
Thank you once again for letting me go first. Appreciate that. iFundWomen.com, just head on over to iFundWomen.com. You can find out more about crowdfunding over there. You can also learn more about grant opportunities. We didn't have a chance to tell you about all of those, but we have an entire database of grants. So if you're looking for the closest thing to free money, make sure to go and check out our grants and all the other resources that we have. So we have those essentially crowdfunding connections and coaching over at iFundWomen.com. I will put my email address in the chat, so feel free to check us out and connect with me. So that's a pleasure to be here tonight, everyone.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's sort of the typical, do you do Reg CFs on your platform?
I'm sorry, it cut out. Tell you that again?
Do Reg CF, Regulation CF campaigns?
Oh, yeah.
What type of offers do you do?
So specifically rewards-based crowdfunding is what we do.
Just the same as a WeFund, but with a targeted mission behind it.
Oh, they don't.
Oh, they don't. Okay,
you
gotcha.
don't
Okay.
do it.
Oh, you don't do it. Okay, understood. Just want to make sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we don't. We want to continue to keep it small, and so for ownership fully to those women and those businesses.
Love that.
Yeah. Well, it is such a pleasure. Love you all. It's such a great time. So like I said, I'll put my stuff in information. I'd love to continue to connect with you.
Trying to unmute myself here. Little Zoom fatigue going on, but yeah, Phil, if you want to share where people can follow you, I know you just changed
I literally just
to your Instagram.
Yeah, I just put it in my name. Like, just contact me there or on LinkedIn. It's probably the best way, and just hit me up there. And if you want to know what I'm about, Instagram is where I put a lot. My Facebook also. There's less of a following there. It's probably easier to get me that way. So, or LinkedIn, like I said. So it should be pretty straightforward.
Awesome. And Lance, feel free to share where people can follow up with you or learn more about what you have going on for people who came in late.
Cool. Yeah. So if you just Makers Academy on TikTok is the main focus. I find if I spread myself too thin, it's all shitty. So I'm really focusing mainly on TikTok. And then I'm going to start posting a little bit more on YouTube once or twice a week. We have a couple courses available. So they're In January, we're upping the price to 200. Currently, that it's $100 for a Kickstarter course to learn how we raise the money on Kickstarter. So that I wouldn't pitch that unless I like thought it was a really awesome course and like had a lot of value. So I know anybody that buys that's going to get a lot of value out of it. So, but it is a selfless plug. Or a shameless
All
plug.
welcome.
Yeah. So
yeah, no, it's good. Well, the thing too is like that they're gonna turn that 1,000 into 50 or 100K as well. So
it really like I will give your money back if it doesn't 10x your money. Like if you don't raise $1,000 because of the $100 investment, I will give you your money back. I'm positive it will bring you money. So
that's the hook right there.
That's the hook. Yeah, sign me up. I might have to figure out I might just make a product and do that, and then. I got too much going on with Entre. I'm just kidding. But, yeah, anyone who if you have questions about equity crowdfunding and regular crowdfunding, feel free to reach out to me as well. I'll drop my info and everything here in the chat as well. There's other people in our network too, and also investors. I mean, we have two of our investors on here, Scott and Nisha. Also, they've invested in us. They've invested in Nisha invested in us and iFund Women. They're always looking to reach out to and connect with founders and startups. And they've done crowdfunding campaigns and stuff too. So we're more than happy to make introductions with them or other people as well. If anyone has anything or wants to learn more or how they should approach it, feel free to just reach out to us. And like I said, we're always going to help the founders and people in our network. The other thing too that we want to do is leverage Entre and our network for people who are doing crowdfunding campaigns, so they can post them on our platform and other people can easily find out what's cool going on. So that's another component of it. And anyone who is doing all of that or wants to get there's a lot of people just sharing what they're working on, ideas, getting feedback on our platform. You'll get a lot of interest in understanding whether crowdfunding is a good solution for you. So thank you all for sticking around. I know everyone has a lot of stuff going on. We're also doing, I dropped earlier in the chats, we have an investor office hours tomorrow for pro members with a venture partner from Cultivation Capital. And we're doing our pitch competition next week. So tonight you can still apply for that to pitch to a panel of angel investors and VCs. And if there's anything else that you're interested in, want to get involved with, feel free to reach out. And I hope everyone has a great week. If I don't see anyone or if I don't hear from anyone, have a great Christmas and happy holidays and happy New Year and all of that. And hopefully everyone is staying sane and safe during COVID. And we're always here to support as well. If anyone's going through rough times, whatever, feel free to reach out to us. I think supporting communities is really important right now. So anything we can do to help, feel free to reach out. But with all of that being said, thank you so much. Thank you to our panelists. You guys killed it and did amazing. And thanks for spending the time with us. And everyone have a great rest of your week and a great end to 2020. And hopefully 2021 will be better, at least socially, I think. So thanks everybody. Take care. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for having us, man.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Thank you so much. I look forward to that Women's Summit.
Yes, I'll definitely share that with you too, for sure. See
Absolutely.
everybody. Bye now.